teens are going to be teens. We
Yeah.
can't really change that.
Right.
They're going to do what they want to do most of the time. And it's our reaction that either shuts the door to
Right.
communication with them or keeps the door open. And I think having the door open is key.
Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. So have you ever been triggered by something your child has done? I am here today with Debra Beck, and we are going to be discussing the topic of how you handle your emotions so your teens don't have to. And Debra, I am so excited to be dialoguing this particular topic with you because I believe as parents that there are times where the fears that are inside of us then get transferred to our teens in one way, but then there's also things that our teens do that trigger those things inside of us as well, and it works both ways. So let me introduce you a little bit to our audience because this is the first time you're joining us on Real Talk. So Debra Beck is an award-winning author of, get this, you're going to love this title, My Feet Aren't Ugly, A Girl's Guide to Loving Herself from the Inside Out. Boy, is that so necessary. She's a dedicated mentor and retreat facilitator specializing in issues facing teens and parents. She has 25 years of experience in self-development and a deep understanding of the challenges of adolescence. She brings empathy and passion to her work, helping young people and their families navigate through the formative years. Debra, you are a mother of two daughters, right? And so I know you've been through a lot. You understand the complexities and concerns of parenting. You're committed to equipping parents with the tools they need to have those amazing relationships with their kids. So I'm just so happy to have you here. We've met before we got on for this podcast, and I just felt that you just had so much wisdom and guidance that I think our audience can really connect with, being triggered, by the things that we do. So what was it in your life? Because I think there's always something that happens to us that brought you to this particular topic.
Well, to the topic or to just doing what I do, my whole childhood, it's just my whole childhood was filled with such anxiety, and I didn't have supportive parents. And then, I thought it was exclusive to me until I had daughters of my own, and I realized, oh my goodness, they're all insecure. Even the boys are insecure. They're all insecure. And so I think that this topic in particular, I think I started noticing mostly with my youngest daughter, how she'd be living her life and doing certain things that I could feel this fear in me. Is she going to be okay? Is she going to make a bad decision? And so the fear in me would come up, and I would have to manage it, because if I didn't, I would then project all that fear onto her and make her situation way worse. Yeah. So
true. The things that are inside of us that trigger us from our past that then come in, and we are projecting it onto our kids, not even realizing doing it. It's almost subconscious.
Yeah, definitely. I remember a situation with my daughter just recently, probably about 6 months ago, where she did something to her car door, and she came to me and she was really not regulated and she was really upset. And I just remember saying to myself, breathe and hold space. And when I did that, I just watched her regulate. I watched her whole body regulate. Where if I would have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. What are we going to do? Then it would have made her worse. And she's an adult now, but we all have a hard time sometimes just regulating our own emotions. And when we're with other people that can't, that makes it worse.
It does, doesn't it? Yes.
It really
And
does.
I so appreciate what you're saying, because there were times probably in my early parenting years when I was just learning to be a parent, because seriously, no one teaches you how to raise a human, that there were things that triggered me and I went off. And I didn't like the fact that I went off, I just knew that I did and I didn't like it. So then
Right.
I had to dig deeper into what are the things that are happening that are triggering me to react and not respond in that way.
Yeah.
And, with having the background in personalities, we know that different personalities are triggered by certain things. And if I could quickly go through, the dominant personality is triggered by the fear of being disrespected. You disrespect me, I'm going to put you in your place. And that can cause us to react to certain things. For the inspiring personality, which is all about the fun loving, they fear the loss of, let's say, their children not liking them because they want to be the popular mom. And so
Yeah.
therefore, when that is happening, that may trigger them to react in a certain way to try and get them to like them, when really it's just looks illogical. It does not look right or practical.
Right.
And for our supportive moms, which are the kind, compassionate, it's all about home and family for them, their trigger is the loss of that relationship, which they know eventually will come. And that fear is like soul crushing to them. And for our cautious parents, it's all about their perfectionism that they put on their children because they want them to be perfect. And of course, we all know none of us are. But
Yeah.
they're the type of things that trigger us to react just from a personality model. Then take in consideration, as you said, our history and our experience.
And that really plays such a huge part of, I have old beliefs of not being considered, always doing something wrong. And my daughter triggers that in me because she will say things that will be like blaming, and I'll be like, what did I do wrong? And if I don't know how to regulate, I'll react.
Yeah.
And so if instead of reacting, I just look and I'm like, okay, that's not about me. I
Mm.
don't need to react to that. And I can just stay in this calmer place. But that's very hard for parents to do, and even situations where I can't remember if I told you this story, but I had, a daughter go to a mother and just walk in after school and say, yeah, so and so is my friend's vaping. And she went on to try to explain how she felt, but the mom came in and lost it. Oh my God, you're not vaping, are you? What? You better not be vaping. That is the worst thing you can do. And then she just went down all this list and full of fear. And it wasn't a learning experience for the daughter because the daughter, if she would have handled it differently, maybe the mother would have said, oh my gosh, how does that make you feel that your friend is vaping? And it's bad for her. What can we come up? Maybe we can talk about it. The whole learning experience was missed
Completely.
because of the mother's fears about her daughter vaping when the daughter wasn't vaping. And the daughter was like, I'm not vaping. Why are you blaming me for acting like I'm vaping? And so that whole learning was just lost because of the mother's fears around her daughter vaping doing something instead of it being an opportunity to teach.
Well, I'll be the first to admit that I was more reactionary in my
Yeah,
in
me
my
too.
younger years, and I
Younger,
would because
yeah.
I didn't want it to happen and I wanted to shut it down quick. But what I learned was when I asked questions and listened, I learned so much more. And that was something that didn't come natural to my personality because I'm fast paced, result driven. We're going to take care of this so we can move on to the
Yeah.
next thing. Everybody get in line. It was a very authoritarian, controlling parenting style.
Mhm.
When I realized that no one was getting in line, that made me even crazier, So I had a lot to learn
Absolutely.
myself. But as I started to recognize what was triggering me and why, and like you said, it wasn't on them. And what I was doing was the disconnect, because why
Mhm.
would they come to me and talk to me again if I'm going to be reactionary, right? If I'm
Right.
going to be reactionary, why I'm not telling mom anything. And that's the last thing as parents we want. We always say, the door is open, you feel safe. I want you to feel safe to talk to me until we react. And then they're like, well, not talking to her again.
Right. And then they say, oh, I don't know why my teens shut down to me. Well, look at the way you're behaving.
Right.
I mean, even when a daughter comes and she's emotional about, oh my God, my boyfriend just broke up with me, and she's emotional, and the mother gets super emotional. And I mean, I think I have had a daughter tell me, I said, well, can you talk to your mom? She goes, oh gosh, no. She'd be more upset over my breakup than me. And I'm like, well, that's not normal.
Right.
The
Yeah.
mother needs to learn how to regulate her emotions so that she can hold space for her daughter. And so then the daughter will come to her, but the daughter won't come to her if she feels like the mom can't regulate.
Yeah. And
right,
honestly, I call it the blind spot. It's like we don't even see the harm we're doing because we're living in our own bubble of why.
right.
And that's why I'm so glad that we are dialoguing this, because I'm sure there are many women who, like me, were very reactionary. And then we get to the
True.
adolescent years. So if we're reactionary when they're younger, we're in the adolescent years, we've already broken that trust and connect. They
Exactly.
will not feel safe to come to talk to us because we have been reactionary. I don't care if it's a spilt milk, or I don't care if you splashed too much water in the bathtub when your kids were little. I mean, like anything that you may have overreacted to will
Yep.
then be what they remember. So let me ask
Yeah.
you, we talk about the self-awareness, and I had to come to that point of self-awareness as to why. But you talk about that being the key to better parenting. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that for us?
Well, I think that if you understand, like I know my old belief systems and I know them inside and out, so I can watch a trigger walking toward me. And so, like I said before, I'm not considered. I'm always doing something wrong. I'm not a priority. I mean, I could do a list of them. I think understanding what your old beliefs are so that you can know that with my kids, oh, this is the one my daughter brings up in me all the time. And then get to the point where instead of getting upset and reacting from my own fears and triggers inside my body, I can go, okay, she just said that. That doesn't mean you're not considered. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just simply means that that's what she's done. Like, I mean, I grew up in a binging alcoholic family. My father was, my mother was depressed, and my sister was just angry. So
Mhm.
my little girl saw things through that lens. I'm not a priority. I'm always doing something wrong. I can't trust people. I'm out of control. So instead of saying, no, actually, your dad's a binging alcoholic, your mother's depressed, it's not about you.
Right.
But of course, when we're little, we think it is. We always think it is.
Well, because
So
that's your
that's the
normal.
part.
That's
Yeah,
your normal. And I say
totally.
that quite frequently, not only to parents, but even to educators when we see children in the classroom react the
Mhm.
way they do, or even speak with foul language. It's like that becomes their normal. If that's what
Totally.
they're around, that is their normal. And so what you saw with, an alcoholic father and a mother who was depressed and a sister who was angry became your normal. And when you step outside of that, it's almost like that feels foreign to you. So you step back into what you know, even though it wasn't a healthy environment, but that was what you knew. That was almost like your comfort zone, could I say, right?
Yeah. Right.
What you
Right.
knew.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you knew.
And
Yeah.
I think knowing yourself really well, so
Mhm.
you can pinpoint this is why, this is when my daughter does this, I'm going to get triggered so that I know
Yeah.
that that's a possibility when I see her,
Yeah.
that that could happen. And then I'd not react and just be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. Oh, well.
This takes me back to what I talk about with the parenting blueprint, and all we bring to parenting is our personality, how God wired us, and how we were parented in the past will equal how we were parent today. And
Mm-hmm.
although I'd like to think that I had a fairly, healthy upbringing, my parents divorced when I was 12. So that kind of adolescence, that kind of threw me off a
Yeah.
little bit. But up until then, I think we had a fairly good environment. There wasn't a lot of yelling, there wasn't drug or alcohol abuse. So that was there. But then there was also me who got in my own way because, you know,
Yeah.
in my personality, because I'm so strong and so was Kyle, when he defied me because he would do what I asked him not to do right in front of me. I mean, you will not disrespect me. And that blew me, you know? And then I
Yeah.
had to realize, but why was he defying me? And it's because he wanted choices and control. And I was more of the teller mom. You know what I mean? I was a
Right.
dictator
Right.
mom.
Right.
And he was going to do it just because. And so that triggered me. But then I realized I had to change my parenting so that he wouldn't trigger me. Like I had to give him choices within my boundaries so that we could work better together, because
Right. Right.
that was going to continue if I
Yeah.
did not stop. But you said the
Yeah.
self-awareness is the key. And that's what it was for me, becoming aware of my personality, why things inside of me were triggering me, and that I was creating those situations.
Right, right, right. Or just reacting to them. I mean, teens are going to be teens. We
Yeah,
can't really change that.
right.
They're going to do what they want to do most of
Mhm.
the time. And it's our reaction that either shuts the door to
Right.
communication with them or keeps the door open. And I think having the door open is key
Oh
because
God.
we don't want them
Absolutely.
going to friends to
Absolutely.
confide. We want them coming to us for advice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take it a little bit further. And we talked a little bit about this because I brought in the information on the personalities. But like, how do we help parents, moms, dads? How do we recognize and stop these projecting these fears onto our kids? Like, how do we do that? I mean, I know we do that through our personality assessments, and it digs deeper. But I mean, for the layperson who is living this day in and day out, what
Yeah.
can you share with them about how they can quickly recognize and then put a halt on that
Well,
before
as
it
soon
gets
as you
worse?
feel that rise, because we all feel it, it's like, ooh, and it's fiery. You just start breathing immediately. You're like, and you name it. I'm triggered. If you're not going to name it outside of yourself, you name it inside. Wow, I'm really triggered right now. Then you imagine yourself sitting back and you start breathing. And if you need to take a moment away from your child, you say, you know what, right now I'm really triggered. I'm gonna excuse myself and just breathe a little bit, and I'll get back to you, because you don't want to be involved in a dialogue with them in this triggered state, because then they get dysregulated, you're dysregulated or unregulated, and then it's like a cuckoo's town. I always call it cuckoo crazy town. What are you even saying? What are we doing? Right? And we've all been there where I'm
Yes,
like,
we
how did I get
have.
here?
Yep. Nothing positive comes out of that. And I
Right.
know exactly what you're saying. I feel it building. It's like I just feel it. I just feel it in the
Mhm.
gut. It's coming. It's in my chest. And
Your
and
whole
and
body,
one of the
right?
strategies I talk about is delaying it. You know what I mean? We're gonna need to discuss this, not
Right.
right now. I'll get back to you
Right.
later
I'm
on
going to
it.
take a
You know what I mean?
breather,
Right. Yep.
and then you
And then
go
and we'll get back
and
together on this because I'm feeling it. And when we're both at the height and stuff, we start saying things that we will later regret because we're just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the kids. And I've been there too and realized, you let
yeah.
that go too far. And so one of the strategies that we work with and that I've actually practiced myself is just delay it. Just and the other
Yes.
thing in delaying that has been kind of a win-win is, and I practice this with my kids too, is, we'll need to do something about this. I don't want to talk about it right now. I need some time to process it. I'll get back to you later. Try not to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then if it's something that they did that I knew was triggering me, they start thinking about what they did to trigger. So it's an
Right.
opportunity for them to reflect. And when we get back together, we're both a little more level-headed. And then we can have that conversation as to what triggers. And when that happens, this is what happens. And I need to own my part of it for sure. But
Absolutely.
understand that when this is repetitive stuff, can we maybe try for that not to happen? So how can we work better
Right.
together to,
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to smooth
What
that
kind of a
out,
solution can we
So
come
what
up
are
with?
some simple strategies? I know we got the breathe part, but what are some other simple strategies to manage these triggers? I mean, I guess I always say first becoming aware, right? That it's happening
Yeah.
and what they
Mhm.
are. But what else would you say in
Well,
reference
I
to
think,
management?
knowing yourself really well, that's key. You have to, or you're just going to react all over the place.
Yep.
Knowing what happens in my body when I get triggered.
Mhm.
That, okay, it hits my stomach, and then literally it hits my chest so hard. And in that moment, I know I have to step back, I have to breathe and maybe walk away, probably walk away. And then when I come back, addressing it in a way that, and ask them, are you ready to talk? I'm ready to talk now. I'm calmer. Are you ready to talk? And if they say no, then say, okay, let's take another five,
Yep.
and then, but coming back when both parties are able to hear, and then also not blaming them. They're teens, they're on the biggest learning curve of their life. Like handling it more like, how am I going to help them learn about this? Not project blame and try to fix it for them. Just sit back and say, well, what do you think happened? And see what they say. Well, do you think that's a good idea? See what they say. And what do you think we could do to maybe make that so it didn't happen again? What would you do? How would you handle that? And usually, oddly enough, they come up with the best solutions
Mhm.
and even consequences. Well, if it does happen again, if it's something that's serious, what do you think a good consequence would be? They always come up with a consequence that's way worse
I
than
do. I
what we
noticed that too. You're
always
so
like,
true.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And then it's about the communication and collaboration, and
Yeah,
recognizing it. I remember one time in particular, and this is an exercise I use with some of my clients. I say, ask your kids, how can I be a better mom for you? I feel like I'm tripping all over myself. I'm yelling. I get triggered, whatever you want to say, but how can I be a better mom for you? And my kid's first inkling was stop yelling. And I
right,
said, you know what? You're right. I do yell a lot. I don't like the fact that I yell a lot, but you're right. I do. But let me ask you a question. Why do you think I yell at you? And they said, well, because we don't do what you asked. I said, so yeah, so you can see how that can be a little frustrating for me. So how could we work this out? Just like you said, how could we
right,
work this out?
right,
And it comes down to when I want things done, I expect you're going to drop and run, and that was not practical, right? Okay,
right,
that was my
right,
personality. So would it be better if when I ask you to do something, you say, "Mom, I'll get to it when," and then
right,
I'm okay with that because I know it'll get done. But just like you said as well, but if it doesn't, what do you think the consequence should be?
right,
And so we
right.
take it that step further, but it really was asking and listening. And I had to go to reflection because I already knew. But to hear it from them that they knew too, it's like, I don't want to be that mom, but I had
Right.
become that mom. So how can we work this out? I don't want to. Now I can, but there were still triggers when I'd ask them to do something and it wasn't like it didn't get done in 20 minutes. It didn't get done for 2 days. Now I'm
Right.
like really having a problem here. So how can we work this out? So if you're not going to
Yeah.
drop and run, and I totally get it. If you're in the middle of a show or you're working on a project or whatever you're doing, I get that. So, but
Yeah.
what would be in a more appropriate timeline? I'll get to it before dinner. I'll get to it after dinner before I go to bed. Then that's cool. But if it doesn't happen, and that happens, guys, what do you think
Yes.
the consequence should be?
Yeah.
Right. So then we
I
had a
think that's
dialogue and take it a step further. So,
yeah.
so having strategies to manage stress, knowing what the triggers are, knowing the emotional feelings, because I think we've all been there. We feel it.
Yeah.
We totally, totally feel it.
Yes.
So share with me in your perspective, and you may have more than one, but the secret to really building that trust and connection. What would you say truly
Gosh,
is the core secret to that?
I honestly, I believe it's working on your own energy in your body. And so if and I notice, I think the biggest shift of my youngest daughter is that when I really, really, really was in a position not to react, not to let my fears get in the way, our relationship started shifting and developing in a totally different way. And she trusted me more. When we yell and explode and react, there's a lack of trust there that yes, you can change by if you just do this and this and this, but the reality, the trust isn't there because they're always thinking, did I do it right? Did I do it at the right time? Or, and I think developing that element of trust due to my behavior, recognizing they're going to be themselves. There is nothing I'm going to change in that. Yes, I can set really strong, hey, this is what I want done on Tuesday. I want it done before 4, and here are the consequences if you don't. And that's just the way it is because I'm not going to play this game back and forth. Well, you said you'd do it and we'll do it now. No, this is when it needs to be done by 4. So I know if the trash, when they're younger, at 4 is full, I will give it 15 minutes. And if it's still full, the consequences come into play. And that doesn't mean that they don't do their trash. They have to do it and they have the consequences of no TV or whatever.
Whatever it was lost. Yeah.
And I think consistency with the consequences, because most parents,
Mhm.
they play this game of you have to do this, and you need to have it done on this day. Then they don't do it, and then they go and they complain to their kids, "Why didn't you get it done?" And okay, I'm taking away technology, and then they sort of take it away, but sometimes they don't take it away. Again, that's a lack of trust.
Mhm.
Safety. They want to know this is what it is. This is what happens. And mom's not going to react. And that does prevent us from reacting when we know. And if they start arguing with us, we're like, no, the consequences are in place. We set them together. And that's
Yes.
the way it is.
Exactly. And I feel the same way. When we've communicated and collaborated what we were going to do, and we left the table saying everyone's in agreement, they already know. And when we started
Right.
following that type of process with that, it was a lot
Yes.
easier when they did something to put the hand out and take the phone because they already knew that the phone was a distraction from getting the
Exactly.
chore done in a timely manner. So we've now lost the phone. So now you've got plenty of time to get the chore done because we've already done that. But we did that together. And it wasn't
Yes.
just me blindsiding. So we are both in alignment with how we communicate and collaborate. But I agree,
Yeah.
Deborah, that some of the biggest challenges I see with parents is the unwillingness to want to follow through on the consequences because it's hard. They don't want
Totally.
to be mean. They don't want their kids to be angry with them, or they're going to be slamming doors
Yeah.
when they talk to
Get
them. And
over
they're
it.
going to. Y'all want to know that this is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. They don't want to be punished, but the punishment is
Of course.
different than the discipline.
Mm.
Discipline is a discipline of self-discipline. We are teaching them to be more disciplined, and the following through is kind of what happens when they are not able to follow through on
Absolutely.
being disciplined to take the trash out at a certain time or manage their time or maintain the grades. I mean, that's all
Exactly.
the self-discipline we're teaching. And sometimes we need to restrict certain things that allows them the ability to get those things done. And then when we see we can do
Right.
that, then we'll open up and you get those privileges back. But it is
Exactly.
all about, I found the same thing, the communication and collaboration. So we're all in the same, and it also gives them a voice at the table and they don't feel as though
Yes.
they're always being told what to do. But we
Yeah.
recognize that I'm yelling at you to get out the door every morning. Every morning, the alarm goes off and you're not moving. And I don't want to start my days. And I'm sure you don't need me in your head yelling at you. So how can we work this out? What would be a better approach to the timeline? Or maybe you do need to
Right.
get to bed a little bit earlier. What do you think would be best? Do you need a louder
Right.
alarm? Do you need an alarm across the room that you actually got to get up and get to it? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, so what do you
And
think would
if
be
you
best? Let's
don't,
try that. Right.
what do you think the consequences
Yep,
should
and
be?
if you don't, right, what do you think the consequence should be, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I've
And then
had kids say, well, they come in and tell me to get up again. I said, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. The consequences are you stay home for the day and you're not allowed to get on your phone is turned off. You're not allowed to be on social media and you suffer the consequences of having more homework and not being there because I'm leaving at this time
right.
with or
Yep.
without you in the car.
Yeah, that's it, the bus is leaving. That's right.
Right. And
If you're in it or you're
the
not, yeah.
consequence. I'm
Yep,
not going to keep coming into your room telling you to get up.
yep, and we carpooled with another family, so I leave my kids behind because it's not fair to the other kids. You know,
Right.
my kids knew that, so we were kinda able to nix that, although there's always one
Yeah.
that's running out the door with their stuff, you know that, right?
Oh,
But they
yeah.
got in the
Yeah.
car before I pulled out, but it
Right.
was really setting those boundaries and being able to follow through, and
Yeah.
so, Deborah, this is just a great conversation and recognizing that as humans, there are gonna be certain things that trigger us, and it's the way we respond and not react to that emotion that's going to make the difference of being able to provide that safety net of trust and mutual respect. And I've been there where I've lost it and then I apologize for losing it, but I can't keep apologizing for behaviors. I've got to fix them and it
Yeah.
starts with me. So what are some closing thoughts that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
No, I just think cutting yourself a break too, recognizing, we're not perfect
Mhm.
humans. That we're on this planet to grow and learn. And I've explained that to my kids. I'm like, you know, you guys are on a big learning curve. And quite frankly, so am I. This is my first rodeo with kids. My kids are older now, but having grace for each other and having grace for ourselves because I think moms, especially like you have mentioned, you're an A-type personality, and I am too. And having like a little grace with myself to
Mhm.
recognize, I'm not perfect. It's okay. I really put a good foot forward and try to be as the best version of myself I can. And I have to be okay when I'm not. I have to just be like, okay, what am I need to learn from? What do I need to learn from that? And move forward. So
So true. I think now that we have children who, well, mine are flown in, grown and flown, so they've moved. But it was really a journey of learning for me as a mom, because, like you said, this was the
really,
first time that
yeah,
I was raising kids, and although I was successful in my corporate career, and I came home, I thought this would be a piece of cake.
Right, right? I
It was
know.
not even in the same game, you know what I mean?
No,
It's like, you get people
exactly.
to do stuff at work, and my little people weren't doing stuff, and I'm thinking, "What is happening here?" You know,
Right.
so it was
Exactly.
I had so much
Exactly.
growing, and now I see my kids raising their kids, and I have more grace for them that
Yes,
I had to learn for myself,
exactly.
and I have to, share that with them that you are going to have days where it's not going to go well. You're going to have days where you're out with your kids and you need to abort mission and go home because it's not going to be
Right,
a good day. And it's okay. You're going to have days when the baby doesn't stop crying and you put him in the crib and you sit on the front step so you can do what you said, breathe and get
right, right,
back
and
in. And
regulate.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
It's
Give you some
okay.
grace. Yep.
It's just okay,
Give you some grace.
and to support each other in that vision, and yeah, and just women supporting women, I think is just super
Absolutely.
amazing.
Absolutely.
So,
No one teaches us how to raise a human, Deborah, right?
no, they don't.
It's really
They
just,
don't. Believe me. I
that's why we
know.
do what we do here
I
at the
know.
Parenting Blueprint is to just give some insights and guidance that, what you're feeling, you are not alone and being able
Yeah.
to talk more about it. And it's okay. It's okay. So, Deborah, I want to thank you for spending this time and
You.
sharing your insights and your wisdom. Those of you who want more information with Deborah, you can check the links underneath the description or more about her and where you can get a copy of her book. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.